Do you guys remember when Chimamanda embarrassed Europe, reminding them of their horrific acts towards Africans? So I woke up nostalgic this morning and I remembered that moment. And I felt like watching it again, but then I thought maybe we should watch it together, right? So let's get into it.
Gorgeous music. Thank you.
She's always so classy and always so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I love her.
President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Steinmeier, Mayor of Berlin, Minister for Culture and Media, Dr. Monica Grütters, Director of the Humboldt Forum, Professor Dagalo, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Actually, good morning-ish. It's almost afternoon. Thank you for having me here. When I was researching my second novel, Half of a Yellow Sun, which is set during the Nigerian Biafran War that started in 1967, a woman told me a story about her elderly father. It was early in the war, and they were in their Biafran hometown, feeling relatively safe because the war seemed far away. Then suddenly they heard the loud, terrifying sounds of bombing very close to them, and they knew that they had only minutes to leave their home and run into the interior for safety before the Nigerian soldiers arrived. The elderly father was a wealthy man, but the only thing he rushed to take with him was his ikenga, a piece of wood, a beautifully carved piece of wood. But it wasn't just a piece of wood. It was also the repository of spiritual meaning. The ikenga represented his chi, his personal spirit, as well as his ancestors, his guardian angels. I was struck by this story. This man, facing the possibility of never seeing his home again, chose the thing that mattered most to him. Of course, he cared about his material possessions, but he believed that those could eventually be replaced, while his ikenga was irreplaceable. There are ikengas in various museums all over the world today, and it is easy to forget as we stare and admire them behind cold and clinical glass barriers that these are objects that are religious, spiritual, sacred. Art lives in history, and history lives in art. Much of what we call African art are also documents. They tell stories. Some are literal in their storytelling, like the beautifully ornate Benin stool that was sent to the Oba of Benin by his people when he was exiled by the British, and which he looked at and immediately could deduce from the carvings the state of his British plundered land. Other sculptures and carvings are more metaphorical. They speak to the dignity of a people, to their worldview, to their aspirations. Some of the early Christian missionaries across the African continent were very keen on destroying African art. Carved African deities, which they told the Africans were just magic.
Which is funny, isn't it? That when it's African, it's bad, it's magic, it's black magic, or it's demonic. But when it's in Christianity, them having symbols, right, carved stuff that they hold dear within the religion, it's not demonic, it's not black magic or magic, it's not evil, it's not something we should run away from, right? It's divine, it's holy, it's a representation of God, right? These are the same people that told us that bowing to a stone or bowing to an image is bad. But go to a Catholic church on a Sunday and go see the amount of people that bow into stones there. But because these stones have been carved in the image of this white man that they brought from Europe, right? It's good. It's good to bow to that kind of stone. If you are bowing to the image of a dead white man, that's okay. But if you are bowing to the image or something carved in the image of, say, an ancestor or say an African deity, demonic, you'll go to hell. It's a similar thing with when Christians, for example, we even see modern Christians, modern African Christians doing this, which no surprise, because that's what we get, no thanks to colonization, right? The mindset of the colonizers is basically in our people right now. Like, take the practice of communion, for example. As an ex-Catholic, really thinking about what communion is and what it symbolizes. The flesh and blood of someone, the flesh and blood of this white man, right? That we are eating on a daily basis. Imagine if that was an African practice. I just know that the way that practice is accepted globally like it is today, that would not have been the case if that was a practice found in African spirituality or any of the African cultures. The only reason why people don't see that practice as something demonic or some kind of weird stuff, and nobody bats an eye, nobody frowns, nobody is talking about how is that not evil. Why? Because it's tied to whiteness. That's a practice that came from the white man. So of course it can be demonic. It's of God. But this is what I'm talking about. Practices like this, Africans co-sign. Africans think are okay. They don't think it's demonic. But let them tell you about waist bead.
All of you ladies who wear these beads around your waist, I quickly need to talk to you guys because you guys, you guys are in danger. I'll tell you for free that this thing is not fashion. It is not fashion. In the spiritual realm, demonic things.
But wearing a rosary around your neck isn't. And again, not all Africans think this way, but a good number of them do. Is that white is right, black or African is bad? If it comes from the white man, holy. If it comes from an African or a black person, demonic. It's the same mindset you see when people tell you how it's demonic to pour libation to your ancestors. People will tell you how by doing that you are worshiping the dead. But somehow it's not demonic when you take a flower to the grave of your ancestors. It's not worshiping the dead when you take a flower to the grave of your ancestors. Like, do you guys get what I'm saying? And that's literally what mental slavery can do to you. When Bob Marley, rest his soul, said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. When I say that man don't know it till they talk. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Some people might not like that I just said that, but it's true. That man knew what he was saying. Because until you can remove the shackles in your brain, you would always continue to see yourself and the things that came from you and your people as less and bad and evil. And you always continue to see the things that came from them people, regardless of how wild these things are, as good and pure and holy and of God. And this is why I said that this year is my year of accountability. Yes, we talk about a lot what them people did. But I think it's time we also start talking about the things that we are doing now and how we are carrying their water for them. How now we don't even need colonizers because we are basically colonizing ourselves. Introspection is something that we need to start doing as a people, collectively, and seeing how we too are bringing damage to ourselves and our people. How we too are contributing to the problems we have, and why a whole lot of people feel a certain way about themselves, feel a certain way about being authentically who they are as African people, who they are authentically as Black people. Because for the most part, our people are not ready to be authentically themselves. Our people are not even ready to say the truth.
Some of the early Christian missionaries across the African continent were very keen on destroying African art. Carved African deities, which they told the Africans were just magic. I cannot help but wryly wonder what could be more magical than the story of a man who dies and then magically rises again, a man who also manages to magically give his body as bread. And I say this, by the way, as a newly returned Roman Catholic. The point is that Belief systems vary, and as long as they feed the spiritual needs of a people, they're valid.
Yes, what she said, very true, but I do want to add that if a belief system is not uplifting a group of people, if a belief system is not empowering a group of people, if a belief system makes you feel less about yourself, makes you want to run away from who you authentically are as a person, if a belief system is not making a group of people feel proud about who they authentically are, then I personally don't think that's a belief system that should be validated within the community where those group of people exist in. I personally could not even get baptized with my native name. I had to pick up an English name because somehow Ivie is not good enough of a name. Ivie is not holy enough. It's not godly enough. You have to go pick a name of a saint, a European person, to be baptized with. There's so much with this belief system that don't validate us as a people. And that's where my bone of contention comes from. Hence why I believe that maybe only the people who it actually validates, maybe we should leave it for them.
We cannot be dismissive of a belief system merely because it is unfamiliar to us, just as we cannot be dismissive of a history because we are uncomfortable with it. So I'd like to tell a small story about a Nigerian woman who's married to a Belgian and has lived in Belgium for many years. She said once that she was shocked that her son, while being taught Belgian history, was taught nothing about Congo. They teach my son in school that he must help the poor Africans, she said, but they don't teach him about what Belgium did in Congo. Now, if her son does not learn that the modern Congo state began 100 years ago as the personal property of a brutal Belgian king who was desperate to get wealthy from ivory and rubber, if her son does not learn that the hands of Congolese people were chopped off with rusty axes for not producing enough resources to meet a task, because we collectively acknowledge that it is so. It is not that Europe has denied its colonial history. That would be too crude. It is instead that Europe has developed a way of telling the story of its colonial history that ultimately seeks to erase that history. The former French Prime Minister, Nicolas Sarkozy, gave a now infamous speech in Senegal in which he said, "I have not come to deny mistakes or crimes. Mistakes were made and crimes committed, but no one can ask of the generations of today to expiate this crime perpetrated by past generations."
The fact that he even called it a mistake, that's crazy to me. How can you call 400 years of intentional barbarity, intentional wickedness, intentional subjugation a mistake? Mistake is something that happens like in the spur of the moment. You did not plan it or anything. It just happened, and you mistakenly dropped a glass. I hate when they categorize colonization and slavery under mistake. It gets my blood boiling. Because come on, we're talking about something that they planned for during the Berlin Conference for like approximately 4 months. For those of us who don't know, yes, that's how long the Berlin Conference spanned for. These people planned what they wanted to do. They were that intentional. They had a conference over it. They planned this act, and nowhere within that duration of the 4 months that they were constantly meeting day to day, going back home, sleeping, eating, bathing. Well, I don't know about the bathing part, but at no point within that 4 months when they were having this back and forth and sitting down constantly, planning out, mapping out all that they were going to do, did any one of them go, wait a minute, we probably should not be planning to do something like this. We should not do this. This is bad. But now we have to sit around and listen to these people call all of that they planned to do and actually went on to do for 400 years a mistake. I think that's an insult. Hell, you can't even mistakenly commit a crime now, can you? Can you? Mistakenly commit a crime? Okay, maybe if you did not look properly and you run a red light, right? that's a mistake. But when you enter a ship and then you travel for days, a bit months even, to go over to a certain location just to go, nah. Those were premeditated crimes.
This is central to the story that Europe tells itself about its colonial history. It is a story that basically says, yes, colonialism happened, but. And whatever comes after the but is the focus of the story. What the focus on the but does is that it absolves. It frees Europe of responsibility, of a significant and traceable connection to the African present, and it allows Europe the glow of charity. But the truth is that the past does not merely tell us what happened yesterday, it also illuminates what happens today. If we acknowledge that present-day Europe is shaped by the Renaissance of 600 years ago, by the Enlightenment of 300 years ago, then surely we cannot say that what happened merely 100 years ago in Africa no longer matters. It matters.
My country, Nigeria, is not even 100 years old yet. I think we're, 65 years old. Some countries, they are even younger. That's how recent the colonization was. There are people alive, a lot of people, parents and grandparents, that were alive during colonization.
We are gathered today in this reconstructed palace, a beautiful place, but also a place that represents Germany's nostalgia for imperial times. When Kaiser William II lived here, German troops were killing children, women, and men in Southwest Africa. This building says that German history matters, even in a romanticized form. The history of Africa and Asia and Latin America must matter as well. We cannot pick and choose which histories and which points of view still matter, because to do this would be an ugly exercise of brute power. And speaking of power, here's a headline I just read in a German publication. The headline says, "Where do Africa's treasures belong?" Now imagine this headline differently. Imagine if it said, "Where do Germany's treasures belong?" It would be a redundant question, because of course, Germany's treasures belong in Germany. But the question would never even be asked, because there would be no circumstance in which it would be, because of power. And so it seems to me that what we are fundamentally grappling with in this space, in all of these questions about the Humboldt Forum, is power. Unequal power, how we navigate unequal power relations. And there's always been, to me, something shabby about unequal power relations. The victory feels colorless, almost unearned. So I spoke of Belgium and its colonial history, but what of Germany and its colonial history? Do school children here learn about Namibia, what was called the German Southwest Africa? Do school children know that 100,000 Herero people were murdered by the Germans? Do they know of the wells that were poisoned? Do they know of the women used as sex slaves and others as slaves in German camps? Do they know of the Nama people killed and of the Maji Maji revolt in German East Africa? And why should they know? Because to tell only one part of a story is essentially to lie. A story is true only when it is complete. Germany is Beethoven, and Germany is Bach, and Germany is also its colonial atrocities that have resulted in hundreds of African skulls being stored in the basement of museums here in Berlin, skulls of men whose spirits cannot be at rest, men who could well have been my great-grandfather had I happened to have been born in Eastern rather than Western Africa. It is only fair to fully own all of the stories of Germany. All countries have parts of their pasts that they're not proud of, that they would rather forget. But it takes courage to face those parts and bring in some light. And this is a time for courage. The courage to hear dissenting voices, such as those of the people who are outside right now protesting. They should be heard and included. They have valid concerns. The courage not merely to say, we take your criticism, but to follow it with action. The courage to say, we were wrong. The courage to say about art acquired illicitly, this is not ours. Tell us what to do with it. The courage to do provenance work and to actively use local knowledge. The courage to act and to act now and not become crippled by endless planning and endless talking. The courage to believe that it can be better. We cannot change the past, but we can change our blindness to the past. And why, by the way, is the term ethnological used for art from certain parts of the world and not art for other parts of the world?
You don't find that suspicious?
And then in discussing some of this art that we term ethnological, and I would argue that the language itself already suggests a hierarchy of value, when we talk about this art that was stolen, we're told that they cannot be returned to Africa, for example, because Africans will not take good care of them. It is not merely condescending to say, I cannot return what I stole from you because you will not take good care of it. It is also lacking in basic logic. Since when has the basis of ownership been taking good care of what is owned?
And also, if the Africans who made this art were not taking care of it before, would you have seen the art to steal? Like, it makes no sense. Obviously, these people were taking care of this art, hence why you even met it. Well, we know it's not about logic or what's true or what's not. It's just about them creating this rhetoric to justify why they should not do the right things, right? So sometimes even going down to want to logically address some of the rubbish that they say is like, should we even be wasting our points and our time? Because they know these things. They just be making these silly arguments regardless to justify to themselves why doing what they're doing is okay, or why they should not do the right thing. And also because of greed, right? So they say these things because they want to keep these things because of what they get from these things. Let's talk about the ones that want to hold on to these things just solely for the singular reason that it reminds them of their glory days. Very similar behavior we see with serial unalivers. For those who follow true crime, we know how these people like to keep trinkets, right? A good number of them. They like to keep things from the people that they've unalived because they look to these things and they relive the moments, the unalivings, just by looking at the objects. So I've said it before in a video that I think them people do the same thing with this artifact.
Since when has the basis of ownership been taking good care of what is owned? This position is paternalistic arrogance of the most stunning sort. It does not matter whether Africans or Asians or Latin Americans can take care of the art stolen from them. What matters is that it is theirs. The brilliant Nigerian artist Victor Hikameno put it much better than I could, and in very Nigerian terms. He says, if I come and steal your wrapper, and I say I won't give you back your wrapper because you will not tie it properly around your waist, or you will not wash it well, and so the colors will fade, or this or that, all are irrelevant. The wrapper is mine, and I can do with it what I will. Give me back my wrapper because it is mine. The metaphorical wrapper, for those of you who are befuddled by wrapper, it's a piece of cloth, should be returned for the reason that a Hikameno illustrates, which is respecting the property of others, but also because Europe has defined itself as a place of certain values: progress, liberty, fraternity, tolerance, individual rights, and most of all, the rule of law.
Other one na jege, oh, who knows, say other one na jege. Other one na jege, translating to English, cap. It's just talk. It's a facade.
A nation that believes in the rule of law cannot possibly be debating whether to return stolen goods. It just returns them. And so if the dignity of those from whom the art was stolen does not matter, then surely this idea should matter, that Europe should be what it claims to be. Live up to the ideals with which you define yourself. I should pause here and note that sometimes these conversations run the risk of sounding like empty moralizing, or like asking for the impossible or the unrealistic, or insisting on an unattainable purity and perfection. Obviously, I don't think everything should be sent back to the countries from which they came. Not everything was stolen. But those things that are sacred, those things for whom people were killed, those things that have in them the stains of innocent blood, should be returned. Obviously, we do not have all the information. There are facts lost in unrecorded history, but we can draw reasonable conclusions based on information that we do have. We can deduce, for example, that the Ngozi, the beautiful sculpture of the founder and guiding spirit of the Nso people of Cameroon, a former German colony, could not possibly have been obtained under benign circumstances, because why would you willingly give up your guiding spirit? It is also important to remember that not all wounds are visible. Some wounds we carry in our hearts, inherited from our parents, passed on to our children. But this discourse is, of course, not just about the Humboldt Forum. It is about museums all over Europe, in France, in the Vatican, in Britain.
And to go back on what Chimamanda said earlier, that they told the Africans that these things, right, these carvings, this art were just magic. Well, they also said more than that, by the way. They said they were demonic, right? But moving on. Isn't it interesting how this art, these carvings, these spiritual objects, they look down on them, they spoke so negatively about them, they demonized them, they said all of these terrible things about these things and the practices that were associated with those objects, right? But somehow, when you go to the Vatican, for example, you will find those objects there. Isn't it interesting? I just think it's very interesting that the Vatican, that is supposed to be an extension of the church, a church that is, according to them, let them tell it, they are for morals and heavenly things and good things and for the things of God and holy things. But somehow, they are holding on to the arts that are demonic, the arts that are magic, the arts and objects that are not of God. Would you not think that if these things were so bad, they would have, I don't know, maybe not want them anywhere near their holy places? But no, that's how you know that that's not what it was about. It was about taking and enriching themselves. That's why till tomorrow, they continue to make money off of these things. They continue to build for themselves notoriety off of these things, off of things that are evil. This is why I said to my people, if it's 2025 and you're still listening to anything these people are saying, and if given after everything that we know now in 2025 that they did, all of the heinous things that they did, the wicked, diabolical, evil things that they did, then people were brutes. These are the same people that told you, thou shalt not steal, but to steal is a sin, is bad. You will burn in hell for doing so. But look at all the things that they stole. They took it to their church. These are things that they stole from your shrines after demonizing them. And then they took these things that they stole to their own shrines. I mean, I don't know say church na shrines. That church is the European version of shrines. I mean, now for my mouth, and I want to hear say inside the yansh they smell. If you believe them, that those kind of people would be able to show you a path to God. If just looking at the actions of these people, there is nothing to write home about, why would you think that they can lead you to anywhere good?
I cannot trust or take seriously, not even talk about acknowledging, or worse, worshipping a God who could not pick better vessels to spread his word. Did you know God can use your enemies to save you? Would the enemies be saving me before or after they kill me? Yeah, let's talk about it. Because you see, this enemy killed off millions of Africans during colonization and slavery. A good number of them were killed for refusing this salvation called Christianity. Others were killed for shits and giggles. So please tell me, at what point exactly do you think they got their salvation? Was it before or after they were murdered? And how efficient exactly was this plan of your God to use their enemy to save them? And for those of you who intend to come into this comment section talking about, oh, the missionaries were different from the colonizers and the enslavers, you see that rubbish? Swallow it. Yes. You see that cognitive dissonance? Swallow it. You see that rewriting of history to fit your narrative? Swallow it. Yes. The missionaries and the colonizers are the same, and they came on the same freaking boats. You might not like that, but facts don't care about your feelings. Picture that Bob is a missionary from Congo, and he's holding the arm of a Congolese man whose hand from here to here, the dog cut come out, censoring for TikTok. This picture was taken during the time where the Congolese people were being enslaved on their own land under the rulership of King Leopold II of Belgium. They were chopping up their bodies and killing them. But yeah, see who your God sent to bring salvation. The missionaries were very much present on the continent when the colonizers were colonizing. If they were not working together, why were the missionaries not trying to stop the colonizers? While some colonizers had guns in their hands so they can colonize us physically, others had Bibles in their hands so they can colonize us spiritually and psychologically. At the end of it all, they all were working hand in hand to effectively achieve the same set goals and objectives that they had. For those of us who have read the letter that King Leopold II of Belgium sent to the missionaries coming to Africa, it tells us all we need to know about the missionaries. They were not good people. They were colonizers who had Bible in hand. That's bloody what they were. This is why I always talk about King Leopold II's letter he wrote to the Christian missionaries coming to Africa. That's a letter that should be pasted on every homes on this continent. It should be framed and put on the walls in our schools, because it tells us all we need to know about colonization, about the missionaries, and what their goals actually were, and how they were all working hand in hand. The first time I read King Leopold's letter, I cried. I cried my eyeballs dry. And it's unfortunate that now Africans believe that those people who came and did all of that to us, we should be grateful to them that they came. They think they came to save us, when in actuality we needed to be saved from them.
Well, all I'm going to say to you is it's 2025. It's 2025. Because I don't know what else to tell you. Let's get back to the video.
And I must acknowledge that Germany is the first of the powerful European nations that has made a gesture towards returning the Benin bronzes. But it is also interesting that the announcement said that a substantial amount would be returned, which made me wonder how this would be determined and by whom. And it is equally interesting that it is British colonial loot rather than German colonial loot that is being returned by Germany. But still, it is progress. And Germany's action, this gesture towards righting what is wrong, must be acknowledged. My acknowledgement of it is not to say that the work is done, but that the work has started, and that perhaps a place like the British Museum, and I know that Neil is here, which owns the majority of the Benin bronzes, might perhaps be inspired by the German decision, and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink its policy of retain and explain, which is unacceptable. So this is the Humboldt Forum. A forum usually implies, among other things, a space created for a free exchange of ideas. One can only hope that the Humboldt Forum will live up to its name as a space for true intercultural and transcultural exchange of ideas in mutual respect between the cultures. But this rhetoric, free exchange of ideas, must be practical. And by that, I mean such things as travel visas. It must be easy for people from Africa and Asia and Latin America who should participate in these conversations to get travel visas. The Humboldt Forum was conceived as a place to tell the universal story of the human race from multiple perspectives. This is a commendable idea, but it is incomplete. Because again, we must confront the issue of power. Who tells the story? Who is the teller and who is told about? Who decided that African art should be labeled ethnological? Who has the right to exhibit the other? Can the Humboldt Forum be an opportunity? Can it become, among other things, a project of remembering, solemn, honest, mutual, and respectful? In conclusion, I want to say that I believe very much in dialogue. And I really believe that we can recreate the world by acting more courageously. To act with courage is to have concrete hope in a better future. We carve out a small space of the world, we shape and we reshape it, and in that way, small slice by small slice, we walk slowly, yes, but we walk on the path to real progress. Courage and hope are intertwined. Courage is an act of hope, and hope is born of courage. Acts of courage create hope, and there is nothing more essential to the human spirit than hope. So here's to courage. Thank you.
I could listen to her all day, I swear. Right now, even at the end here, I'm thinking about going to binge watch other of her videos. The Danger of a Single Story, for those who haven't seen it, you should check it out. That speech of hers, oh my goodness, and her storytelling, amazing, just absolutely amazing. She's so intelligent. Yeah, so now I'm ending this video and I'm going to off-screen watch again for the upteenth time The Danger of a Single Story. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's very enlightening, very educative. I think everyone, literally every single human being on the face of the earth, if they can see it, that would be nice. Yeah, because like there's a lesson there. It speaks to everybody, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity. So yeah, I'm going to do that offline now. Let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.